Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're doing a box office breakdown from this past weekend, which saw the brand new releases of films like Barbarian, Brahmastra Part 1, Shiva from India, Lifemark, a new pro-life movie, and Medieval, which unfortunately, even though I've heard some pretty good things from fans and from people who are members on the channel, it doesn't seem to be really resonating all that much with the people that are actually going to see it. Even its per theater ratio not looking all that great after its first week of release. We'll talk about these films and also updates to films like Bullet Train, which is on the path to breaking even, which, as you all know if you follow me for a while, it makes me very, very happy because I think it's one of the best films of this year, as it is darn entertaining to boot. Top Gun Maverick as well is doing a lot of awesome things, including domestically officially surpassing the domestic number for Black Panther's adjusted for inflation, which I think is the only fair way to really do it, number of domestic total. So that is pretty awesome to see, and I think it is a big sign as to why, or rather what, people are wanting to go see versus what people may have used to wanting to go see prior to the pandemic. Let's just say people are being a little bit more aware of what they're spending their money on and actually want to be entertained and might not actually want to spend their money or shell out their money for mindless drivel. At least that's how it seems in certain respects. We still have a ways to go. We still have to wait for a lot of these things to pan out, so we will, of course, follow that here on OMB Reviews and our box office coverage. But before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. Smash the rumble button, since I also upload over there. And let's go ahead and get started. Make sure, of course, you have the bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live onto the channel. Of course, you have to be a subscriber for that. But Barbarian made $10 million, coming out at over 2,300 screens. So a wide release, though definitely not the widest that we have seen for sure. This is a horror film that apparently costs around $5 million or less. Still not a lot of information as far as the total cost for the movie. I know some people have said in the comment section, oh, I found the budget here or there. But as far as official releases are concerned, there is no actual number except for people saying that it came in underneath $5 million. So either way, it's well on its way to breaking even within the course of the next few days. Haven't really heard a whole lot about it. It is a film about an Airbnb gone to hell, basically, and is definitely one that seems to be much more psychological thriller in certain ways, and I tend to like those, so maybe that will be a film that I will have on my to-watch list at some point in the future, but hey, we'll have to wait and see what the overall consensus is from you, the people of Asgard, because I take y'all's thoughts and opinions much more seriously than that of a bunch of critics. That is for darn sure. We also have a brand new film from India, Brahmastra Part 1, Shiva. This is actually an attempt, from everything that I've read about it, this is an attempt for them to create their own, basically, universe of films. So not only does the Part 1 indicate that, but also they are apparently planning a just massive universe, all based upon these Indian films. And so it'll be interesting to see how well these films do overall worldwide. As you can see domestically, the $4.4 million doesn't seem like a whole lot. When you then compare that to the 810 screens that this film was on, that is a very impressive number there. Over $5,400 per screen, better than the per screen ratio for Barbarian. So it does make and kind of ask the question, if this film had been released in more theaters, would its number have been higher? I think obviously the answer to that would be yes, but by how much? That is, I think, the big unknown factor, because Indian films don't necessarily do well in every single market. So because it's done so well, though, per theater, I wonder if Foxstar India, which apparently this film is being distributed by Disney, boo Disney, but they're distributing the film apparently. This is going to be interesting because they are going to have to make the decision next week of whether or not they want to just keep the film where it is, or if they want to expand it and see if it will continue to do well even if they have it in more theaters. Either way, it's actually already looking pretty good for this film, even though it has a long way to go to make its money back. It's one of the most expensive films from India, costing around $50 million when you convert the currency, which was a task that I had to do. Again, usually when I'm finding the budgets for films and they actually have a number and it's actually from a different country, they normally already done that process of converting it. This is one of the rare ones, though, where I found it, I was like, oh, no one's actually done the conversion process on this. Okay, I'll give it a shot. So my calculations came out to be roughly $50 to $51 million American. We'll have to wait and see. Again, if I math's wrong on that, just let me know, but that just seems to be the case based off of what has been reported so far. Bullet Train came in back at number 3, so top 3 return for Bullet Train. As you all know, I'm a very big fan of this movie, dropping only 44%, making another $3.2 million. Seems that Sony is going to keep this film out a little bit longer. It only dropped 61 screens with really no competition until mid-October. No reason to pull this film, especially with it only being about $7 million in the red as of the recording of this video. So I think that there's a very good chance this film cuts that in half by next weekend and maybe even breaks even at the earliest next weekend, at the latest within 2 weekends after next. So 3 weeks from today, that would be the latest I would say that this film is able to pull its break-even point, which makes me very happy. It's a darn good time at the theater if you want to just have a lot of fun and you want to have a film that does not take itself seriously, which is the reason why you can have fun with it. Bullet Train is the movie for you. Another great fun time at the theater is Top Gun Maverick, which made another $3.1 million, pulled around 100 screens for that movie. But since this film has been out for 16 weeks, $705 million domestically, insane numbers there, 47% drop. That is incredible. So Top Gun Maverick continuing to be a top 5 release and continuing to kick just a lot of butt. And as I said, even beating out the adjusted for inflation numbers of Black Panther, and we'll get to that in just a second. Round the top 5 is DC League of Super Pets, which made another $2.8 million, and this film has actually done very well since it opened 7 weeks ago, but the problem is that its initial opening weekend was not nearly as strong as it could have or should have been, and so though it's strong, or rather its holds have been quite strong since that point in time, because it didn't have that upfront appearance, it still has a way to go before it breaks even. Warner Brothers seems to not want to have any desire, or has no desire, it seems, to pull this from theaters. It only pulled it from 72. So after 7 weeks, similar to what we saw with Bullet Train, it looks like they are going to keep this film in theaters as long as they can, trying to make as much money back as they can, though Bullet Train is so much closer than what we see with DC League of Super Pets. Is it theoretically possible? It is moving in a good direction. It is seeing some decent movement every single week, but is it going to be enough? Law of diminishing returns says it's kind of up in the air at this point in time, but we will continue to follow it. The Invitation, now in its 3rd week of release, dropped 46%, another $2.6 million, pushed this film over the edge, so this film has now made its money back. Not a whole lot of profit, at least at this point, but it's likely to end with a few $1,000,000 or so in cash. So hey, kudos to you for putting a horror film out, not in October, and apparently it's not even all that great to boot, based on things that I've heard. Lifemark is a brand new film. It's a pro-life movie. Very interesting to have a pro-life movie out during the wake of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, of course. And this is of course, making me very happy to see this film making $2.2 million, having a pretty good per-theater ratio there, even better than some of the other films that I'd mentioned. But it is also just interesting, nonetheless, that Fathom Events has actually even carried the movie. So I'm actually going to have to give kudos to Fathom Events there for carrying movies, even if it does not go with what they personally might believe as an actual company. I don't really know Fathom Events to be a political organization. I have not really heard stories of Fathom Events, canceling any type of premieres. To me, I think that they just are running themselves as a business, just like businesses should. They said, hey, we can make some money. There's a lot of Christians who probably are going to want to go see this movie. Okay, we'll host it. Right, because Fathom Events tends to have some of these more obscure, independently produced films that come out, and so it's this film being distributed here by Fathom Events, so very impressive numbers there. It's a Kirk Cameron pro-life Christian film, so glad to see that there. Am I going to see the film? Usually those movies aren't very well done, just going to be honest. They're usually not the best movies in the world, but I will say I am happy to see a pro-life movie out there, especially in the midst of all the chaos within our world, especially here in the States. Beast dropped to the number 8 spot, making another $1.8 million, but as you can see, not nearly as much confidence in this film does Universal have, as it's pulled it from 424 screens. It has only made $644 per screen, even after 4 weeks. So as you can see, even though this film's drops haven't been the worst in the world, because it did not have a very impressive opening, it's looking like this film will end up as a bust. Theoretically, is it possible for the film to be able to pull something out? Maybe, but it just does not seem like they have confidence in it based off of the number of screens being pulled at this point in its release. Minions Rise of Gru rounding up here, the top 10 with the number 9 spot, $1.6 million, 53% hold. Again, crossing $900 million worldwide, and Spider-Man No Way Home in the top 10 spot, $1.3 million, 76%. This is for the more fun stuff version, but since it is essentially the same movie with just a few extra scenes, it is being added on to the original take on the movie, so this film's well over $1.9 billion, which is darn impressive. Some of the other films that are not in the top 10 but worthy of note, Where the Crawdads Sing continues to have pretty strong holds, and as you can see, still at over almost 2,000 screens, so pretty impressive to say the very least. This film has more than doubled to an insane degree its first 2 weeks of release after 9 weeks. Very impressive stuff. Thor: Love and Thunder is on the way out. As you can see, Disney finally pulling it 10 weeks in from 204 screens. It only made $1 million. Its per screen ratio is terrible. Just go ahead and pull this thing out. You're not going to get any much more than $1 million or so in general. They only added 2 million or so from last weekend. So that's adding in all the weekdays and the weekend numbers to this movie. It's just not there. It's a movie that made its money back based off of what we have in front of us, but definitely not the most impressive and one of the least impressive films in the entire history of the MCU, if you actually break down all of those numbers. Nope's $830,000 is not all that impressive, but the film continues to do well enough in its day-to-day and weekend total, and more importantly in the international numbers, which, as I said, is going to be the number to watch for this movie, where it's actually on the cusp of breaking even. It probably will be able to do so by the end of next weekend, if I had to take a guess. And then we have the brand new release Medieval, and as you can see, the number 14 spot, a brand new release, $810,000, even though only 1,300 screens, its per screen ratio, not very strong. This film features Ben Foster, who I'm a pretty big fan of. Michael Caine is in this film too. So whether or not this movie makes its money back at this point, it's just not looking all that great for it. Barbarian worldwide made $10.5 million. Brahmastra is at $23.9 million. Bullet Train at $211.8 million. As I mentioned, very close to its break-even point. We have Top Gun Maverick, which is now at $1.453 billion. And as you can see, when you adjust these numbers for inflation, I got the little adjusted for inflation tag on here over on the numbers. You had $704 million. People often forget Black Panther was one of the highest grossing domestic releases in the history of the MCU. Not to mention, at almost $1.4 billion, it was also one of the highest grossing MCU films just in general. People often forget that not every MCU film has made $1 billion, though there is a larger portion of them that have versus other universes, for instance. You do still see this movie has been beaten by Top Gun Maverick at $705.6 million domestically. Internationally, it beat it a long time ago, but $1.453 billion is pretty darn impressive. And hey, kudos to Top Gun Maverick and kudos to their team for being able to pull off such an amazing feat. And since I'm not a big fan of Black Panther in general, glad to see the film actually lose to a far superior movie. We have Honk for Jesus. Okay, it's been talked about. DC League of Super Pets at $168 million worldwide. Invitation at $25.1. Lifemark, as I said, the pro-life movie, $2.2 million. Beast at $52.9. Not looking all that great for it, even though it's not below its range. It's on the lower end of it, and it's not doing anything internationally. So looking like this film will likely be a bust. Minions over $900 million worldwide, but hey, I'm going to call them out again because, yeah, let's see, they're up to $32.4 million in China, so tens of millions of dollars going to the Chinese Communist Party. Screw you, Universal, for being the major studio at this point. That keeps to work with them. Spider-Man No Way Home, $1.9 billion, just so darn impressive. Where the Crawdads Sing, $122.2 million, way off the charts versus what it was projected to make. I still don't quite understand why this film's doing as well as it is, but hey, kudos to them for doing it. Thor: Love and Thunder is pretty much done at $750 million, and as you can see, never made it to the point that it should have based off of its initial opening. Nope, right now at $165.3 million, low end domestically, but because the international number is showing up just enough, likely to hit its break-even point by next weekend. Medieval only at $810,000. We do not have any other numbers for this movie yet, so not looking good based off of its budget, not the largest budget in the world, but when you're only making $810,000, not a good start. And Jurassic World Dominion, that's right, the film that everyone, or that a few people in the comment section are still obsessed with, $998 million, has not reached $1 billion yet. Added $2 million between last weekend and this weekend. So is it still possible for this film to make $1 billion? I think so. I think that it's definitely going to do so. But it's interesting because if you go back and look at some of the comments from earlier videos, people said, oh, it's for sure going to make $1 billion. It's easily going to do it. Yeah, it's struggling. It's literally being kept in theaters. The only reason why at this point they're keeping it out in theaters is because they want it to cross $1 billion. It's not because it's really making a whole lot of money based on the films, or rather the theaters that it's currently still in. So yeah, even if it does hit $1 billion, guess what? Still sucks. So anyway, there's my weekly shout at the people in the comments section obsessed with that movie. All right, let's get into some of the projections. So Medieval, again, we talked about what they've made so far this week with Medieval, Lifemark, Brahmastra, Barbarian. Honk for Jesus did not give me a budget, so I still do not care about that movie one iota. So let's go ahead and jump to some of those budgets so we can talk about the break-even point for Medieval. So Medieval cost $20 million as the reported budget, meaning the film's break-even is roughly $50 million. So $810,000 to start. Not a very good sign. As I said, has a long way to go. Lifemark, no budget on that movie. Can't imagine it cost a whole lot, but who knows at this point in time whether it will make its money back or not. Brahmastra, when you change the numbers there, when you adjust those numbers from rupees to USD, it came out to be roughly $51 million or so. If it's not the exact amount, please back off, okay? Seem to be one of the first persons that's actually, done the conversion based on the number that we have been told. It is one of the largest and one of the most expensive films in the history of India, from what I have read, and the film is needing to make $127.5 million worldwide to break even. I think that's definitely doable, especially if that per theater ratio, if expanded, keeps up the way that it is. It'll be interesting to watch. And then Barbarian, no official budget has been said for that movie. Anyone who says that there has, one person in a previous video said, oh, it's 4.3 million. Don't know where he got that from, because there's nothing indicating that that's the exact amount from any type of reliable, credible source, at least as of the recording of this video. The only thing that I have seen from any sources at all is that it costs under $5 million to make. And so that's the number that I'll be going off of. So this needs to make about $12.5 million to actually break even. Looking at the numbers, you can see Medieval is at $29.5 million in the red. Needs to do a lot more than that if it's going to hope to hit its break-even point. Brahmastra is $23.9 million, puts it at $62.1 million in the red. But as I've mentioned, its per theater number there domestically, and it not being released in several countries at this point, means that there is actually some room for this movie to be able to make up some of that ground. Barbarian, $10.5 million, puts the film at $1.2 million in the red, meaning that this movie will break even by the end of next weekend. Invitation is at $87,000 in profit, so it'll end up making another million or two or so. So it'll have probably about $2 to $3 million in net profit if I had to take a guess. 3,000 Years of Longing, still a massive flop. Really no numbers to speak of with that movie. Beast at $22 million in the red. Again, not performing nearly as well as it needs to if it was going to hope to make that money back. Fall has actually not only had the broke-even point about a week or two ago, but is now at $1.2 million in actual net game profits. So that's what happens when you have a very small budget movie and you still don't make a lot of money. Bullet Train, $211 million at $7.8 million in the red. That's the reason why I say the film is going to make its money back. It's going to probably more than double, or roughly double, the amount of money it made in the first 2 weeks of its release. So, hey, that's good news. I am a very big fan of the movie and would strongly encourage everyone to go see it. I feel like possibly I might be at least a small part of the reason as to why, just through willpower alone, this film is going to cross that break-even point, because it is really a good and fun movie. League of Super Pets is still $34 million in the red. So even though it's doubled what it did in the first 2 weeks, so as I said, very strong holds from week to week, as you can see, it still has ways to go. Is it going to have enough? Warner Brothers seems to think it might, and that's the reason why they're keeping it out at around 3,000 screens. That film, Nope, as I mentioned earlier too, even though the early projections, I even said from the beginning, were not going to be accurate because of its late release internationally, it's finally coming to the point where $2.7 million in the red, it is going to be able to make its money back in the course of the next couple of weeks. Crawdad Sing is at $37.3 million in the black, continuing to be one of the most impressive films of the year as you can compare to its first 2 weeks, 35%. That is just darn impressive. Almost similar to, and actually better in certain respects, than Top Gun Maverick, even though Top Gun Maverick, of course, at $1.4 billion. Insane stuff there. Jurassic World Dominion, $998 million, $351 million. So again, it already made its money back. It already made massive amounts of profit, but the movie ultimately still sucks. Minions Rise of Gru, hey, still doing well. Thor Love and Thunder, $75 million in the black for that movie, based off the numbers as I currently have them. And those are pretty much the major updates for the box office. So what are your thoughts? Have you seen Medieval, Lifemark, Brahmastra Part 1, Shiva, Barbarian, or any of the other films I talked about? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, not that fire button on Odyssey. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. A huge shout out to Joey Horn, who I still need to add to the end credits video. I'm going to get on that as soon as I possibly can, but life, work, has got in the way, so I wanted to shout you out while I still have it in my brain cells. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out for all of my September Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals members. Starting off with my Patreon members, Chris from the 80s, that's his YouTube channel, Garrett Searles, Hymir Irie Hymason, Jeff Toon, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Orange Eye Reviews, you can also find on YouTube by the same name, Rosetta Allen, YouTube's name is Eagle Rider, Stan Andrian, and Miss Martin Muses, and that is her YouTube channel. Thank y'all very much for supporting me over on Patreon. Also, for all my Subscribestar peeps, Matt317, that's his Twitch channel name, support him there. Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and the K-Man. Thank you, K-Man, as well, and you can find him at xtheboundaries.co, and thanks to all of my Subscribestar members. And lastly, to my Locals members, Locals has definitely been hopping a lot more recently. Shout out to Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, UAB UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win, Brett D90, and the amazing lawyer Robert Barnes. Thank y'all for supporting me over on Locals. And if you want your name shouted out vocally at the end of every single live stream and video, make sure that you support me over on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. And you can find out more information about it on those websites, and check out the top link in the video description below if you want to find out more about how to get that, access to podcasts that I do with John the Flickinger, and also how to be featured on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, which I do once a month with my Chosen of Valhalla members. And it's always a lot of fun. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today. You guys all have an amazing rest of your day. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Beautiful people. And as always, God bless.